Hello, welcome to another computer literacy broadcast. Welcome to the end of the course. I'm just going to go over the last few things you need to do. All right, here we go. So there's some review pages here. So these are just links back to pages that we had before. If you're still having trouble with your book site, please continue to work on that and let me know if you need any help, and I'll help you get that done. So here's a link back to that assignment page there. We're going to play around with HTML and CSS with an external style sheet, and I'll explain why we're going to do that by showing you my WordPress site from my book. So that's available at WordPress and Gary Parker. And here's my book site. Oh, that's the wrong one. Where did I publish that? Someday I'll get it straight where I publish stuff. Maybe I published it here. There we go. So I did Alice in Wonderland this year. You saw some of the other ones I did before. And each of my pages has the same color scheme and layout. And that's great. It's a good thing. One problem with it, however, is the way I set it up initially. But we learn in small steps. And so we started off playing with internal styles, where we added styles to specific things inside of the page. And then we learned about an internal style sheet. So I'm in Chrome here. So if I right-click and inspect the source, I can see the HTML and CSS that makes my page what it is. And I have this large section in the top between the style tags. That's my style. Once I got my first page the way I wanted, I could just copy and paste this into all my other pages. But the problem is, what if I change my mind? What if I look at this color back here one day and say, man, that color sucks, I want to change it? Then I have to go change it at every one of these pages. Now, that's not too bad because there's only 6 pages. So I could change that color 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. But what if I had 100 pages? Damn, that'd be a lot of work. So what we need is a new way to do it. And the new way is the third way to look at style sheets, which is an external style sheet. And so there's an example of that over here. So what we do is in our HTML, we just add a line in the head that says, go look for the styles somewhere else. So there's a file in my folder called styles.css. You can call it whatever you want, but it should be .css for styles. And then in that file are all of the styles that you want to use. The cool thing about this is all of your styles located in one place. And if you want to change the look of your site, you go to that one page, you adjust things there, and your whole site is transformed. And so we're going to take a look at how that works in the next tutorial. Another thing, I asked you to take a look at last week, the tables tutorial at W3 Schools. And so here's another example of a table here if you want to check that out with a style sheet that you could attach to it. And the table looks totally different with the style sheet or without it. And so right here, I could build this site and run it. So let's do that since we're here. And we are using Notepad++ because I'm in Windows today. Let's close this other stuff. And I've got this new file I'm going to add this into. And there's a lot to remember for playing with HTML, and that's why sites like W3 Schools and Mozilla Developer are really nice, because you can go to them for tips on how to get stuff done. So I'm going to save this in a new location, and this is optional. You do not have to do this, so feel free to fast forward through the video if you wish until I get to the next part. I'm going to put this in a reasonable location, and we'll call this table website, and this will be my index file. And then I can run it and see what it looks like in Chrome. And so here's my table. You know, things line up like they're in a table, but it's pretty basic at first. So what we're going to do is, where'd you go? We're going to now add the style sheet to it. So we've been learning about style sheets, and they can transform the way HTML looks. So I'm going to copy all of those styles, and these are all things that came from W3 Schools and the tutorials there. And to add it in the head, I'll have to put a style section. So start my style tag and end it. So I always like to start and end my tags at once, because otherwise I forget to do that later. Put some space, and now I'm going to paste in that style stuff right here. And I'm going to resave it. So if I copied and pasted right inside the style tags, then it should all just work. So if I reload it, voila, I have a completely different looking site. I zoomed out, yeah, I zoomed way out. Let's go to the normal view. Look at that, isn't that nice? Pretty cool. So again, the idea of styles is they can completely transform HTML by telling things where to go on the page, how to interact with each other, colors, background colors, and a bunch of other cool, slightly interactive stuff. I'm going to take this a step forward, further. So let me get rid of that and move on to the next part. So the next part is the advanced web design tutorial. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a plain looking page like this one right here, which is related to that first website we made about privacy and security. And then I can make it a little better looking. And I have a bunch of options on how to do that. So I give you most of this stuff straight away. So you just have to download this zip file. So some of you may have played with zip files already. Whether you're on a Mac or Windows or something else, you got to download the file. And a zip file is a folder that's kind of packaged up in a box. And this is a little bit slow today. Come on, Internet, be on my side. There we go. All right, so if I just try to double click and open it, it's not going to work right. With zip files, you got to first find the folder they live in. So I got to go navigate over to the folder it lives in. And I got to find the file called blah, blah, blah.zip. Mac's a little easier. It's pretty straightforward. In Windows, what you have to do is right click on the zip file and choose extract all. And you have to tell it where to put it. So I don't want it to be in downloads anymore. I want it to be somewhere I have better control of it. So I'm going to go to my documents and find my CS120 folder. And then let's see, I'm just going to make a new folder to put it in inside CS120 called what? Advanced ADV Web Tutorial. And that's where it's going to go. So then I extract everything, and it's going to show me it when it's done. All right. So cool. I got a folder within a folder. That's all right. So here are all the files that we're going to start with. So we're going to take a look at index first. I'm just going to open it up and see what it looks like. There it is. Then, or if you double click a file, the computer guesses at what program to open it with. It saw it was an HTML file, so it said, hey, Chrome is the program. But often we want to edit these. So now I have to right click on it and say, please edit this with Notepad++. So then it goes to Notepad++ and say, open me. Now, instead of a big style section in the head here, instead what I did is I put all my styles in a different file, and I told my web page to find the style sheet, and I had to tell it where it's located. So this is using what's called styles1. So if we look back in my folder, you can see I have a styles1 and a styles2. So just for fun, I'm going to switch this. What does style2 look like? Save it. Go back to that page. So here's style1, right? A little black and white, a little gray. I'm going to hit reload. So no, I did not mess with the HTML, really. All I did was say, use a different style sheet. Watch how the style can totally transform the page. Whoa, isn't that amazing? Totally different page. Same content. All I did was say, use style sheet 2. And style sheet 2 just said, hey, go in the upper left instead of being in the middle, and be white and orange instead of gray and black. put the navigation at the top instead of on the side. So we played around with these ideas last week, and now we're just using it in a slightly different way. So the cool thing about having the style in a different style sheet is that somebody could say, hey, I want to keep all my content, but I want to just look a little bit different. And some designer could come in and make you a third style sheet and say, hey, how do you like this style? And all you do is tell your page to use that new style sheet, and boom, everything is updated, which is kind of nice. Okay. So the goal of this particular project is to just try to play with styles some more. And we're going to tweak a few values inside the style sheet. And then we're going to teach another plain page how to use the style sheet. Okay, so for example, where'd you go? There you are. Let's close this one. So if we look at my second page called privacy.html, that's a pretty plain page. You guys all made a page like this. The only thing different about it is I added an embedded YouTube video to it. And so we can look at that code in a minute. But what I want this page to do is I want it to look like that page. So I have to teach the page, the plain page that we made, a couple weeks ago, how to use this style right here. So let's open up privacy. And we can see privacy is a very plain HTML file. It's got a very simple head section. It's got a body with an H1 and an H3 and some paragraphs, right? This is how we started off 2 weeks ago. And then last week, we started learning about header sections and divs and navigation sections and section or article sections. And down here at the bottom, we learned about footer sections. So if we add these things like the footer, the section, the nav, and the div, then our plain privacy page will look more like the index page. And I have a bunch of steps that'll help you do that. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to play around with the style sheet one. After we do that and see how it looks different, we're going to train the privacy page to use the style sheet by putting certain HTML elements in the right spots. Let's do it. So first thing I want to do is just change some of the values of color, background, and background color inside the style sheet number 1. So to make that visible, I'm going to switch in my line 5 here where it says use a style sheet. I'm going to switch back to style sheet 1 since I was just asked to edit that here. And let me blow this up a little bit. Let's see, how do I blow things up here? There we go. All right. Come on. There you go. All right. So I just switched over to use style sheet 1. Now I'm going to edit style sheet 1, so I have to open it. And it's right here. So I have an extra index file. What is that? Oh, the running log. Let's get rid of that. Okay. And style sheet number 1. So I can play around with the background. So often background is synonymous with background color, but you can do more with background if you read about it in the style section of W3 Schools. So I want to play with some colors. So to do that color play, I need to look up some colors. And so to do that, I think what I'm going to do is go to that tutorial from last week where we played with colors. So it'd be week 9, and that was more with HTML and CSS. At the bottom of this page were these different color apps. So color picker, what's that one? That one's not that bad. I want one that shows colors that look good together, and not that one. How about Color Hex? That's that game, Adobe Color Wheel. And you gotta just go in here and play around. Oh, this is a cute one. All right, so this one has analogous colors. So that means colors that are kind of sort of alike. Okay. Other options are the triad that picks colors that are opposed to each other, that will complement each other well, or that will contrast with each other well. And then complementary colors are colors that definitely look high contrast together. So this red and that green have a high contrast. This red and that green have a high contrast. So I think I'm going to go, and then there's just a bunch of other options. I'm going to go for the triad. And so they'll tell you what color these are right here. When you click on it, you can go get the hex color. So suppose you really like that blue right there. So I could grab that. And again, we are changing this home page here. Did I not save it? Index. Oh, I didn't save it. I switched back to style sheet 1, remember? Reload it. Okay, so here's that right there. So I'm going to change this background color right there in the style sheet. So that's in the body, and I'm going to replace the background with the color reference I just copied. Whenever you put in a hexadecimal color, it's got to start with a hashtag, because that tells the browser that what's coming next is a hexadecimal color version. And then I can save it and refresh it and see what my page looks like now. Oh, that's nice. That looks a little better. All right, so then I can just keep playing with things. So maybe I could mess with the body color of the text. Where are you? Color picker right there. What do you think? For the text, maybe we could try that red right there. Well, that's just pure red. FF and zeros on everything else. That's just like typing red. Back here. Notice this is a shorthand right there. So that means the same thing as pound BB, BB, BB. If instead here I had typed F00, the browser thinks, oh, you really mean FF0000. If I typed F05, the browser would say, oh, you meant FF0055. So there are shorthands for some hexadecimal colors. All right, paste that red in there, see how my page looks. So there's just a lot of tweaking and then reloading. Okay, interesting. And then maybe I want to mess with this background. And oops, I need another color. What haven't I tried yet? That yellow. Get it. Copy. And let's see where do I want to put that. I want to put that as the, sure, the container background. Let's try it. And where are you? Over here. Oh, not Alice. This one. Whoa! Nice, huh? Look at that. All right. So hopefully some of you guys are better with colors than I am. But this is my change. Ooh, some of it didn't work so well. Look at this down here. I'm going to have to fix that. So let's see. That is in the footer. So let's pick something for down there. How about, let's try this blue background with the yellow. Copy, footer. Is there color white? Yeah. So if I just paste that number in, it's going to be a problem. I need to do a pound. And it looks like I forgot to add, I like to have spaces after the colon. It makes it more readable to me as a human being, not a web browser. Save it, reload it. Oh, I moved it out to another page. Alice, go away. There you are. Reload. Okay, yeah, that blue is a little bit better. And that white line is, you know, that's kind of looks weird now on that yellow background, so I could change that to something too. So let's see, that's the border of the footer. So border white, there we go. So we want to put that some hexadecimal color in there, or you could do one of the named colors if you like looking those up. Reload. Okay. So the goal there was just to kind of play around, change some things on the style sheet, see how it affects the page. So other things I could change on here if I wanted to, for example, I could make it less wide. So that would be the container content. Let's see. Div container. Where is container? It's got to be here somewhere. and not use diff. Oh, there it is right there. Maybe I could make it 700 pixels instead of 800. Maybe. All right, so next we're going to go back to the description of the project. And what else are we supposed to do? Okay, so we changed some colors, changed the container width. Hey, check it out. I must have intuited that. Don't change the width or padding for the nav and the content. These are designed to add up to 100%. So that is one important thing. When you have widths for different parts of the page, if they don't work together well, crazy shit can happen. So heed that warning, otherwise crazy shit will happen. For the footer, H1 and H2 and anchor selectors change the values of some of the properties. Okay, so if we just change some footer stuff with the colors, I haven't messed around with H1, H2, or the anchors. So, and then we want to add an H3 section that's kind of like the H1 and H2 sections. Note here, I've mentioned to some of you before, EM is a measurement, kind of like a pixel, but different. So pixels are the actual points on the screen or on paper. And EM is a multiplication factor. So 1 EM says be whatever the normal size is. 1.5 EMs would be 1.5 times whatever the regular size is, which makes something 50% bigger. 2 EMs would double the size of something. Okay, so we want to play with H1, H2, anchor, and add an H3 section in the style. So here's our style. Let's do this a little backwards and add the H3 section. So notice that an H1 is double the size of the normal font. H2 is 1.5 times the size of the normal font. And these styles right here, I grabbed from, I think, the description of what an H2 is supposed to look like in a normal browser when somebody doesn't mess with it. So we're just going to add some space there, and I'm just going to copy this H2 stuff and turn it into an H3. So customize H3. Ooh, that should have said H2 up there. All right, so I should make it a little smaller than 1.5 times the size, maybe go 1.3 times the size. Margin before and after the object. So I think I'm going to not do, let's see, 0.83 EM. So that would be take whatever the regular line height is and make an extra line height of like 83% of that. So maybe I'll just knock that down to 0.55. I'm just making shit up here. Start and end. Let's leave those. And font weight. What are some font weight options? Some editors will tell you what font weight options are when you click on them. But it looks like this one does not. All right, so that means I need to look up font weight because I don't remember. Where do we go? We go to W3 Schools. And then we are playing with CSS. And I'm looking for stuff about fonts. Fonts. Font families. Font style. Font size with EMs. Come on, here we go, font weight. Okay, so we've got normal, we've got bold. Are they going to tell us anything else about it? Not there. Okay, what about try yourself? Normal, lighter, bold, 900. Okay, so that's kind of sort of helpful. There's 900. What if I made it 800 and run it? Didn't really see much different in that last paragraph. Maybe we could add a section called thickest. My recollection is the weights go from 100 to 900. So we could always go back here and search for font weights. And W3 Schools font weight property. Notice it gave me some ads first. Beware of the ads. Okay, so, all right, so normal, bold, bolder, lighter, 100 to 900. 400 is normal. 700 is bold. So if we wanted something to be beyond bold, like bolder, we would make it like an 8 or a 900. So I could do something like a 600 then if I didn't want it to be quite so bold. And does it get no units, I think? Yep, just a number. All right. Yep. Okay, some other things we were supposed to mess with was H1 and H2. So one thing we could do to H1 and H2, we could add special colors to them. And back to my color picker for that. So what do we look like right now? It is the same color as the rest of the text. Maybe a green might look nice there, huh? So color wheel, if I shift you over a bit, ooh, look at that green right there. Let's get it. Back here, save, and maybe H2 we will make bolder. And what else we're supposed to change? The anchor tags. We could pick different colors for the anchor tags. Colors that. Visited link. Let's go peek at our site. Reload. Did I not save it? I didn't save it. And information privacy, since I've already been there, that must be that color right there. All right, I could have sworn I added a funky green color. Oh, aha. Everyone's yelling at me. I can hear you. Hexadecimal. And let's take that color and make that our link color too, to see what it looks like for visited links. So that's after you clicked on it. Before we click on it, it's going to be bright white. And that may not look good on that yellow, so we might have to redo that. Oh no, that's hover, I'm sorry. Okay, so then the default is like a blue color for links before you click them. And reload. And that green is not the best color here or on that yellow. It's not very good contrast. I think we need a darker green. Where do we find darker greens? Over here. Let's try that one. Color tools are just amazing. Hashtag. We'll leave the H1 the way it is. Save. So just play around. Okay, that's enough play there for now. All right, so I'm going to skip along in the project a little bit. So let's see, did that. Okay, so next you're asked to switch over to style 2 and then play around with some stuff in style 2. So you guys can totally handle that, including the font family. Ooh, I'm going to show you something cool with font family. This is awesome. Check this out. Google has put together a whole site of fonts for web development. So if you search for Google Fonts, and most of them are free. So you can just kind of look through the list and find something you think is cute. Sometimes you can search for a term and it'll, pop up a font. Like when I was making my Alice in Wonderland font, I searched for the word Alice and I found a font called Alice, which I thought was quite nice. And so I applied that to my site. All right, so I'm just going to pick something a little wild here. Let's see. Nothing's that wild yet. Come on, give me something wild. Oh, that's kind of cute right there. All right, so to use one of these fonts, what you do is you click the Add button, and then Google will set it up for you to use. And so they say, in your HTML, you'll need to put a link to a style sheet for this font. So I just copy that, and then I drop it into my HTML file. So that would be, say, my index or my privacy file. So I'm just going to throw that in right before my style sheet. To apply the style, they then tell me to add this to wherever I want to use it inside my style sheet. So this is the CSS. So HTML to get the font, CSS to apply the font. So copy that, and then I'm going to add that to my style sheet. And so let's say I'm going to apply it to the whole body. So you could get wacky and apply different fonts everywhere, but that can get kind of nuts. All right, so there's me using the font. So I need to save my style sheet. I need to go back and save my index. And let's check out my new font. So I'm going to blow this up. You can see a little better, and then reload it. There's my new cute font. Oh, it's all right. That's kind of nice. I like it. Yeah. And if you wanted to switch fonts, you would just go back to Google Fonts and pick a different font. You could use multiple fonts at the same time in different parts of the page by just grabbing those, and then they'll tell you how to use them. So in this case, I would need to change that link to use either Kaggle or whatever or Indie Flower by just putting that in my HTML. So I'm going to replace this second line here with this new second line Google gave me. And then if I want to apply the Indie Flower thing somewhere else, I need to go grab the Indie Flower line here. So maybe inside the body, I want to use Indie Flower, but everywhere in the section, where'd you go? So in the container. So style, container, and then I just add a line in there for that font. Save it. Looks like that's saved. And then I'm just trying to change this stuff right here. So reload. Okay. Ooh. Oh, everything's in the container. Duh. I knew that. Oh, the joys of web design. Shit happens that you weren't quite expecting. So I can cut that out. And let's say I want to use that in the header. And maybe the footer. Save it. So the order that you apply them matters, because otherwise shit happens. Save. Ooh, whoa, how did that happen? Hit the wrong button. Reload. Okay, so yeah, here I have that C-type font up here. And in the footer, and I have that funky scripty Indie Flower tag everywhere else. Okay, so you get way more options with fonts if you try to use Google Fonts. And it's a matter of adding a link to a style sheet, and then in your style sheet saying where do you apply the different fonts. All right, okay, fun with styles. Next, how do we train a page to use a style sheet? So that's part 8 right here. So we're going to take the privacy sheet and we're going to make it look like the index by adding a place for the div that has the ID container in it. And so I'm going to kind of jump back and forth looking at the index file and adding these special areas in the privacy file. So this is a tricky one, but you guys can do it. You're all kicking butt on your web stuff. I'm so proud of you. All right, so first thing in the index file, after the body, I need a div container, and that div container is from the top of body all the way to right before the body closes, we close the div. All right. And so you could retype it, or you could just copy and paste tags from one file to the other. So after body, paste in div container, and then don't forget to end the div container right before body ends. All right, next thing we want to do, save. We need a header section for that title. And I'm going to grab the comment in the beginning of the header, and then I'll just have to type in the end of the header. So back to privacy. So this needs to be in the header, so let's indent it a little. And then we'll end the header right after the H1. Oops. Oh. Oh, wrong key. All right, got that. All right, next thing, and we can double check the instructions as we go. we got our div, we got our header around the H1 block. ID title needs to go in H1. Okay, got about that. So just like we have ID container, inside H1, we need space ID equals title. Make that H1 special. And notice that has to go inside the left and right angle brackets. I'm going to end the double quote in the right spot. Okay, so then we want to add the navigation section. So we grab that whole chunk from the index file, save. So all of this into, where'd you go? Right there. Okay, so right after header. All right. Push that back a little. All right, got that in there. Okay, making progress. Next, we have our main content selection. So I have main content, section, class content. So these two lines need to encase everything above the footer. Copy, and see, notice that ends the section, and then the footer starts. So back here, right after nav, paste in that, and then I want to indent all this stuff underneath so it's more human readable. Where's my footer? Okay, my footer is at that H1 there. Okay, so all of this is that section, and I need to indent it. Let's see, how do we do that here? Is it tab on the keyboard? Yep. Okay, that's indented just enough. All right, so right here is where we end that section. We don't need the H1, the HR, the horizontal rule. We're going to replace that with a footer section. And the footer is going to contain a link back to the home page or to some other page. I can't remember. I'll check that out in a minute. Need to close the footer. Indent that. Indent that. Okay, that looks good. All right, what is supposed to be in the footer? Let's go check our instructions. Let's see. We did the section tags around the main content. Section should have class content. Let's see, we did do that, right? Yep, class content, because we copied it straight out of the index file, so we're trying to match it. Footer is going to be around the section from the index.html file, and we're going to change the link there to the next page, which is called tips.html. All right, got it. So here, instead of going home, we want to go to a page called tips.html. Double check that we have that file. Yep, there it is, tips.html. So that's the file we're linking to. So we'll just write more tips. Okay, save. We've done a lot. Let's see, how are we doing? Remove the style attribute for image, and then we're going to add the float left class. All right, so let's see. Did index use that somewhere? Switch back to index. Where is my image? Okay, image, class. Okay, there's class float right and versus class float left. What do those classes look like? Let's take a look. So image float right says float right, and then you remember how this works? It's always top, right, bottom, left. So come around like a clock. Top, right, bottom, left. So this is floating the image to the right side of the page, but putting a margin on the bottom and the left side. This one's making the image float to the left side of the page over here, and it's putting a margin top on the right and on the bottom of it. So to use a dot something, that's like that dot makes it a class. So in the HTML, around my image right here, we need to get rid of the style and replace that with class equals quotes float, which one was I supposed to use? Float left. And double check here. Yep, float dash left. Float dash. All right, save it. Run it. Did we do it? Where'd you go? Here. Let's go click on the link to information privacy. And something went wrong. Reload. Ooh. I know what I did wrong. I forgot to say use the style sheet up here. Nice. Very top here, we need index. Uh-oh, where'd my style sheet go? Did I delete that accidentally earlier? I did. Okay. Oh, no, I just moved it over to the wrong line. All right, there it is. All right, and I think I also want those fonts. I can get those in a minute. Copy that style sheet into privacy. Inside the head, anywhere inside the head. Put it right here. That's online. All right, save it. So we told it how to use the style, but we forgot to tell it to grab all the styles. So now we're telling it to grab the styles, reload, and it should be magically transformed. Nice. Now, since we didn't notice the fonts look slightly different here than on the index page here. That's because I didn't give it the information about the Google fonts, even though I told it to use the Google fonts. I didn't tell it where to get the Google fonts. So to get the Google fonts in there, I have to go back to the index and say, hey, grab these Google fonts right here. Copy that line, put it in privacy. So the order of operations here is important. First, we have to go get the Google fonts, and then the style sheet can then use the Google fonts. If I had these style sheets listed in the wrong order, it would screw things up. And reload. Come on, did it use them? I think so. I think the fonts just changed. Maybe. Must have, if I copied it in there right. All right. We did it. And then we can jump back and forth between the two different styles pretty easily by just saying, hey, use style sheet 2 instead in my privacy page. Save the index. And where'd you go? Here we go. Reload. And now it uses the other style. Zoom out a little. Yeah. So that page looks totally different just because we told it how to grab one style sheet versus another style sheet. So if I wanted both my pages to look the same, then I would just have to tell both pages to use the same sheet. So index, I'd have to say, hey, use style sheet 2 also. You don't want to manage multiple style sheets. You would just replace everything inside of style sheet 1 with all the stuff from style sheet 2, and then all your pages will automatically update. So, all right, so if you want to try it, so just doing this once is hard to get the hang of. If you want to try and get the hang of it some more, we've got this privacy page, and then we have this tips page. You could, click to enable. Allow. You could try and do the same thing we just did for the privacy page to the tips page to make the tips page use the styles. So if you think you're digging web development, you're starting to get the hang of it, and just a note, nobody is good at this stuff out of the box. This is tricky. It takes getting used to. There's lots of new patterns of visual cues that you have to get used to. When to start an angle bracket, when to end it, when to start a quote, when to end the quote, when to use the style syntax of thing, colon, value, semicolon, when to end the curly bracket. All that takes time to get used to. So nobody is good at this immediately. It took me years to get good at this, and I have to look stuff up all the time. Okay, I just like it. Not for everybody, but if you think you're not good at it, it's only because you haven't practiced enough yet. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, back to our website. So again, you're going to tweak style sheet 1, you're going to tweak style sheet 2 a little bit, You're going to train the privacy HTML file to use the style sheet by adding all those special tags that the index had. If you want to get a better grasp about how that works, after you do this to the privacy file, go do that same thing to the tips file. If anybody wants some extra credit, then do it to the tips file. And when you submit this, say, hey, I did the tips page too, nice and pretty. And I'll give you a nice heavy dose of extra credit for that. Because this stuff for me is like one of the coolest things on the web. It is the web, right? This is how web pages are designed. Okay, back to our home page, and I'm going to shut up in just a minute. So otherwise, really, you just got to get ready for the final exam. If you really dig this website stuff, then in week 10, check out my JavaScript tutorial here. If you want to say you actually coded, you got to do some JavaScript. HTML and CSS technically isn't coding. There are what are called WYSIWYG editors for editing websites. That means what you see is what you get, kind of like a word processor for websites. Blue Griffin is a free version of a WYSIWYG editor for the web, and there's others that you have to pay a lot of money for. So if you want to learn more about how to edit a web page and what you see is what you get as you do it, this is a great one right here. Take a look at this. This is optional. You don't have to do it. The JavaScript stuff is optional also. The stuff you really have to do this week, if you didn't finish your book site, get it done. Get in touch with me for help. If you didn't finish Personal and Social Impacts of Technology last week, get it done. I haven't graded those yet. I don't know you're late. You have to do the advanced web tutorial. It's a good idea to go through this stuff first before you do that. And this final cool stuff is all optional. There's an interesting video here about journalism, encryption, and free expression, optional. So the required things are the advanced web tutorial, and getting these quizzes are going to help you get ready for the final exam. So some questions on HTML and CSS. You took a quiz like this last week, HTML basics quiz. This has questions from that and some extra questions. Networking stuff that we did some research about a little while back. Privacy and review stuff. We have this page here that has stuff about privacy and security. Read it if you haven't read it. That's the same. Those are the same pages, or two of them are the same as what we did last week when we made our first two-page website. So read that stuff on privacy and security that we made websites for, because there is a quiz on it right here. And then otherwise, to get ready for the final exam, look back at all the other quizzes we took. If you look at those quizzes and you don't remember any of that stuff, then you have to go back through those tutorials. And the final exam has to be proctored, which means you got to go to a testing center or do it on ProctorU, something like that. There's also a feedback survey I'd like you to take at some point to just help me make this course better. What did you like? What didn't you like? Give me some details. I know you did a similar kind of survey already that's required for all courses, but this one has a few more specific questions based on this course. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. Get in touch with me if you need any help with anything. Let's get this done and everyone out of here with learning a lot about the web and all this software, and good grades to boot. Have a good day. Do good computing.